Hello and welcome to episode 218 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is January 29th, 2024. Today I'm wearing a fairly old shawl. It's a triangular crochet shawl, and if you look at my project name, it says Rigato Häkeldreiecktuch, which is crochet triangle number 2. And the reason is that I actually crochet the same pattern twice with the same yarn, just in a different color. And the reason was that that was back when I was working for Wolle, and this is one of their yarns, the Rigato. It was one of my favorite yarns. And I'd been given some balls in a different color that I wasn't too fond of, but I got it for free. So I took it and I crocheted this shawl just to try the pattern out. And I really liked the pattern, but as I didn't like the colors, I gave the shawl away to someone who really loved the colors. And then I picked this color and just crocheted the same shawl again. And it's out of a book that I don't have here at the moment, unfortunately, but it's a book all with crochet triangular shawls that are not symmetrical. So they all start at one side end, so not the middle point, but at the side, and you crochet one side straight, one edge you crochet straight, and one edge you increase. And that way you crochet this way, so that the stripes go this way. But when you wear the shawl, the long edge is this one, and the stripes sort of go in a diagonal. And I really like that fact. And I've crocheted several of the patterns already from the book, and I may do some more someday. Yeah, but really happy with this big, warm, huge crochet shawl. And the pullover I'm wearing today is knit in honeycomb brioche, which is not very obvious anymore because I intentionally put this pullover into the washing machine to felt it a bit. And the reason for that is that I originally knit this pullover for my son at a time when he was already taller than me. And so this was too big for me, but at some point he stopped wearing it because it was just too warm for him. He never wore it and he gave it back to me. And I didn't really feel comfortable wearing it in the big size. So I put it in the washing machine. It was a bit of a risk. It could have come out way too small, but it came out almost perfectly. So the length is perfect. The sleeves could have been a little bit longer, but it's not a problem if I have them hanging down like this. They're the perfect size. The neck is okay. So the only thing is it's not my colors typically, so I don't really wear it very often, but because it's been felted, it's quite dense and really warm. So with this kind of weather that we have at the moment, I do take it out every now and then, and I decided to show it on the video today. So I'm nice and warm here in my cold shop. Yeah. So much about what I'm wearing. I don't have a Ravelry page for the pullover because it's such a long time ago that I made it, but I think there is one for the shawl. But you'll see if there's a link underneath or not. Okay, then on to finished objects. I have one finished object again, and I have two new cast-ons, but one of them is the one that I planned last week, so it sort of counts for last week, and then one new cast-on for this week. But the finished object is my summer top. It's the Reina de Picas pattern. I bought the pattern on Ravelry. I already bought it several years ago when a friend of mine knit the pullover, but never got round to doing it until I found this yarn, which I had one ball of. It was 100 grams, 700 meters, and it's a mix of cotton, silk, and wool. And I was a bit worried if there would be enough yarn, but I'm really happy with the size that I got out of the one ball of yarn. The pullover has a really big yoke, so I ended up fairly low on my body and already on the arm. And I did the arms exactly as the pattern says, the yoke as well, didn't change anything there. I did the short rows that were in the pattern. Then I knit down until I had enough yarn left to do the ribbing. And then I think I did a few rounds more than the pattern calls for because I still had enough yarn. I did a fairly normal bind off, cast off, just a little bit loose, not too tight. And this is what I have left of the yarn. It is actually 2 grams, so I could have knit more rounds, but I don't feel I had to. I kind of stopped because I thought it's a good length, the pullover is a good length, the ribbing is a good length, and to have 2 grams left over just made me feel very comfortable in casting off, to know that I have enough yarn. No matter how loosely I cast off, I won't run out of yarn. So really happy with the pullover. Haven't washed it yet. I think after washing it'll be a bit more, a bit smoother. Is that what you say? So the stitches are not quite all the same size, which is fine while you knit, but these things even out while you wash the things. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like after I've washed it. And I will not wear it next week because it will be way too cold. And I will try and remember to wear the pullover as soon as the weather gets warmer, so that you can see what it looks like on me. I may put some photos on Ravelry with me wearing it, just in case you're curious. So that's the finished object. Then on to works in progress. I continued knitting on my sock from the Soxx Look book. And last week I'd finished the bit with the purple and the colourful yarn, and now I've added in the dark grey. Just added a few more rounds, nothing too much. But one interesting thing that I noticed with the first sock, I think last week I mentioned that the yellow stripes are different in the socks, in the 2 socks. But with the first one, when I did this big dark grey pattern, there was also some grey in the colourful yarn. So it doesn't really come out too clearly, which I don't think is a problem. But when I did the second one, there was only blue next to the dark grey. So it's a lot clearer in what it's supposed to look like. And then again, I have a yellow stripe here, and I now have a grey stripe. I've almost finished the bit where the pattern repeats, and then there's the pattern changes a little bit, and this dark grey pattern is sort of repeated here with the colourful yarn. Here again, I had a little bit of yellow and grey, so this pattern again doesn't look quite as clear as you can see it here. So we'll see what the yarn does on the second sock. Yeah, so that's the pair of socks that I'm showing now. Then I continued knitting on the little baby cardigan that I'm improvising / designing at the moment, where I started off with 2 knit hexagons that I folded into a sleeve and part of the front and back. I finished both halves, and then I attached the 2 backs by doing a 3 needle bind off. I attached the shoulder bits with Kitchener stitch, but you could also do a 3 needle bind off here. But for this seam, I decided to go for a 3 needle bind off because I wanted to film a little video to show how that works. I did it from the inside. So the seam itself is visible on the inside, and on the outside you can hardly tell there is a seam. And once I'd attached the 2 pieces, I knit a few more rows onto the lower edge of the cardigan, so that's why there's no seam here. And I did a button band on both sides, so I put buttonholes on both sides, and that means that once when I go to sew on the buttons, I can just sew them on top of the hole, and I will know that they are on the same height. And then after I still had some live stitches at the end of the sleeve, so I picked them up here, and I added some rows of garter stitch to knit like a little cuff on this arm. And I've picked up the stitches on this arm, and I haven't started knitting yet. There's no yarn hanging on it, so I just picked up the stitches. I will knit the same amount of rows as here. I actually did knit rows and then sewed it together. and you can hardly tell there's a seam. And even if you can see it, I don't think it matters if you have a little seam in the cuff of a sleeve. And if you knit in the round and you do one knit round and one purl round, you will also see where the pattern changes and will look a little like a seam. And I actually think that this is less visible than changing the pattern. And also, I thought it's easier to just knit every row instead of knitting one round and purling one round. So this is how far I've come. So this week I want to knit this little bit of cuff on this sleeve, and then I'm going to pick up stitches around the neckline, and we'll just add a little bit of a garter stitch border around the neck, and I will do a little video showing how I pick up stitches, because I know that's something that people tend to struggle with. So I've decided to make a little video about that, and once I filmed that, I will put the 3 videos that I recorded together into one video. Rather, my husband is going to do that because I don't know how that works. So there's one video showing, or one part shows how to start the hexagon. Then the second part is how to do the 3 needle bind off. And the third part will be how to pick up stitches to knit a little, like a neckband or something. So that's a little baby cardigan. And then I have a new cast on, the first new cast on for this week. I am knitting another baby cardigan, which is a bit crazy, but this is how things sometimes work. And I already had that planned before I even planned the other baby cardigan, but one thing after the other. I am knitting this baby cardigan as part of the pattern battle in the Opal Abo group. So the Opal Abo, the Opal subscription, you've probably heard me talk about that before. If you buy that from Opal, you get 4 parcels in a year. Each parcel contains 6 balls of sock yarn, and you don't know which colors you're going to get. And this ball was part of the last parcel that we got in December. And then every time there's a parcel, there will be a pattern battle in the group for the Opal Abo, and there we choose one color. This is the color that was chosen, and then everybody taking part in the pattern battle has to knit a different pattern than everybody else. So I decided, I usually try not to knit socks because most people knit socks, and I decided to do a baby cardigan that I've knit before. It's from this book, Knit Happy with Self-Striping Yarn by Stephanie Lotvin, also known as Telly Bean Knits. And it's the baby cardigan called Showered in Rainbows Baby Sweater. And this is what the pattern looks like in the book. And you can see that she's knitting in several different directions and in several pieces, which means that the stripes in the yarn get broken up and run in different directions. And because you change the number of stitches that you're using, you get different width of stripes, and it's so funny. It's not the easiest way to knit a baby cardigan, but I love doing it. I don't mind picking up stitches and attaching pieces, and you don't have to sew. You knit except for the one seam in the back, but that's done. Oh, the seam in the back, and I think the ones on the shoulder, they're all done in 3 needle bind off. So no sewing, but a lot of picking up stitches. So I showed you, this is the yarn that I'm using, and this is the first piece that I've started knitting. And already you can see that the stripes, especially those gray ones, are really wide because I'm using less stitches than I would for a sock. And now I've split the stitches in half, and now the stripes get even wider because it's only half the amount of stitches. And I think this stripe and this stripe are usually the same, and you can see that it's smaller here and wider here. And I now have to knit I think I'm at the point where I do the short rows for the shoulder shaping. It's quite fun to have shoulder shaping on such a small cardigan. And I'm not knitting the smallest size. The last one I knit the cardigan, I knit the 3rd size. So now I'm knitting the 4th size, and I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 sizes altogether, and I'm trying to knit one bigger size every time I knit the cardigan to see how big I can knit the cardigan until I run out of yarn with 100 grams, because with the Opal Abo you just get one ball of yarn. And yeah, I have friends with the subscription who would swap with me, but I want to find out how big a cardigan I can knit with one ball. The last time I did the 3rd size, I think I used 70 grams, so I had quite a bit left. And now with this size, we'll see how far I get. Yep, so that's the first new cast on. The next project, I think it's the last sock yarn project for now, is the hat I'm knitting. It's the Ruschia hat by Woolly Wormhead, and it's this sideways knit hat out of the book that I showed to you, I think 2 episodes ago. And I want to knit it for my sister, and I was hoping she could try it on before I finish it. But at the moment she's not here, she's gone for 2 weeks, so I will just probably knit to the way it's written in the pattern for this size. It's size small, and then when she comes back she can try on the finished hat, and either it fits her and she can keep it, or we give it to somebody else, and maybe I'll knit another one, because I should have enough yarn left. I'm using this 8-ply sock yarn by Opal, doubled with the brushed alpaca by Hansa Farm, and these are 150 gram balls, and I will probably have enough yarn left to do another hat. I'm not quite sure. I'll let you know once I finish the hat. The hat is shaped with short rows to form the crown of the hat, and fewer short rows to bring the edge of the hat a bit in. And I really enjoy the knitting. It's a fairly simple pattern. You have just a few slip stitches to break up the garter stitch to just give a bit of interest, and yeah, really enjoy that. And then the next project I want to show you is not out of sock yarn, but it's a fairly small project, and that's the Remember cowl that I'm knitting in the double knitting technique. And last week I did not show it because I didn't get round to knitting on it, but this week I have continued knitting on it, and this is what it looks like. I'm using red and black alpaca silk yarn by Hansa Farm, and with the double knitting technique you get one layer on this side and then the reverse colors on the other side. And the pattern has a collection of these flowers on the cowl, and because it's double knitting you don't have to be careful with how much distance there is in between the patterns, so I can have lots and lots and lots of space with no pattern. And as there are no floats in double knitting, it's no problem. But you can also have this patch with lots and lots of flowers and pattern. And I finished this another patch with more beads, sort of like here, but I think even bigger. And yeah, really enjoy the knitting. So this is sort of the back of the cowl. There's no flowers here yet. Just quickly show you the other side, which is sort of the right side because it's supposed to be red poppies. Yeah, and I just love the way these black beads look. And yeah, really looking forward to wearing this one day. But I'm still shy of the halfway mark. So I think I'm on round 39, and the whole thing has 82 rounds, I think. So close to the middle, but not there yet. That's that. And now to the bigger projects, and I'll start with the Geogradient shawl by Stephen West. And I managed to knit one more stripe in the in this dip stitch pattern, and I used the black yarn. Now I managed to finish the stripe so I could cut off the yarn, and again this is a project with no yarn hanging off it. And this is what this pattern looks like. Now it's a bit hard to show because it's so dark with the dark grey and the black, but I think you can see it. And I checked the pattern, so the way he knit his shawl, I should do one more stripe with the first color and then use the second color to do the I-cord bind off. But I still think I want to continue knitting. I have enough of the black as well to do another stripe. I'm not quite sure I want to do that. So I will definitely do a stripe in the light gray and a stripe in the middle gray. And then maybe I'll do the I-cord in the dark gray, or maybe I'll repeat one more stripe in the dark gray and do a black I-cord bind off. So that was my original idea, to knit until I can do the bind off in the black, because I kind of like to have this black outline to things. But if I get really tired of knitting this, I might do the edge with a dark gray, which is not so different from the black. But I don't know yet. So I think I'll decide every time I finish a stripe, I decide whether I want to wait another week to finish the shawl. If I even manage to knit one stripe every week. So this is what it looks like. Again, it's not a small shawl. It's not huge. It's somewhere in between. And I think no matter how many stripes I knit, it will be big enough to be a really nice shawl that I will love to wear with all my colorful things, because it's such nice neutral colors. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so that's the Geogradient. And then the next project I want to show you is the summer pullover that I'm crocheting. So the knit one is finished now, but the crochet one will still take quite a bit of time. And I think that's another project I didn't show you last week because I had hardly crocheted on it. But now I've done several rounds. And I think the last time I showed it to you, I'd finished this sort of shell pattern. And then I added several rounds around it. And it was still a round project. But then I started doing the corners to get it into a square. So this was the first round where I put stitches in that were different, that weren't quite round. So this edge sort of still looks round. But there's one corner here and one corner here. And I already started the next round. So this corner already has 2 rounds to it, as does this corner. So now I'm not only crocheting corners, but I'm also doing bigger stitches here and smaller stitches here. And I think she will continue to do that until I have 4 straight edges to my square, which now I can start calling a square. And at some point I'll have to compare it to my first square, where I added a few rounds beyond what the pattern told me to do. And because in the book, those squares that are the same size, they come up the same size if you use the same yarn. So if I add rounds to one of them, I have to add rounds to the other one to get to the same size. And I certainly want my pullover to have the same size front and back. So that's that. That's a pure cotton by Wollerödel called Diamant. I think it's discontinued, but it's a really nice yarn. And then the other crochet pullover is the Whispering Pines pullover. And last week I had finished, no, I was still working on the short rows. So I added 2 more rows of short rows last week. And then I decided the armhole was big enough and I was really happy with the neckline. The front's a lot lower now than the back. And then I still had a tiny bit of yarn left, and I thought I might be able to do 1 or 2 rounds on the front and back so I can attach the front and back, and then maybe I can use the next ball of yarn for the sleeve. By the way, this is another 8-ply sock yarn by Opal. And then I started doing the first round and I couldn't even crochet over the back. Before I'd finished the end of the back, my yarn was gone. So I undid that, read through the pattern, and then looked at the number of chain stitches that she does to attach the front and back. Did a few more because my yarn is thinner, and then cut the yarn, did the same number of chain stitches on the other side, and then I went straight into crocheting the sleeve. And this is what it looks like now. So I did, as I said, I did the same number of chain stitches to connect the front and back, but then I crocheted onto the sleeve part of the yoke. The numbers were, completely different from what the pattern called for because of the fact that I have thinner yarn, so I had more rounds in the yoke, I had more rows in the short rows, and I did more chain stitches, so I couldn't really follow the pattern anymore. So what I did in the first round, I just crocheted over the chain stitches, and I just crocheted over the edge of the short rows, and then crocheted in pattern. And then I sat down, I counted the stitches that I had, I checked the pattern to see which size was closest to what I had. And I think I was right in the middle between 2XL and 3XL or something like that. And the reason I checked that is to find out how to do the decreases on the sleeve, because in that pattern she actually gives number of stitches and rounds for each size, and each size has a different way of decreasing decreasing down your sleeve. So I looked at the two sizes that were next to my number of stitches, and I picked the one that was easier to remember. So for this size, I actually do the decreases every 4 rounds. And because the pattern starts off with a different kind of stitch after every decrease, I actually put in a marker for every decrease I make, so I can remember with what kind of stitch to start the round. I'm again crocheting to and fro to stay in pattern. So you can see that the colors sort of come and go back, and I have like a seam running down the sleeve, which is okay. And in the pattern, if you crochet, when you crochet the front and back, she wants the beginning of round to be in the back, center back, the way it's in the yoke. But I've decided I don't like that so much, especially as I have this bit with the short rows where I don't have something that looks like a seam. So I've decided I will probably put the seam at the side of the pullover and just decide one side, and that'll be the start of round. Yeah, but so far I'm really happy. I think I've tried the pullover on not after every decrease, but like after every other decrease, just to make sure it's not too tight and not too wide. So far it looks really good, and I'm looking forward to continuing with this sleeve. So that's the crochet pullover. Then I knit a bit on the skirt that I'm knitting from the Evenstar shawl pattern by Susan Pandorf. And I think last week I just started the next increase round. So it's like, it uses the pie shawl method. So you knit a few rounds and then you double the number of stitches, then you knit the double number of rounds, and then you double your stitches and so on. So I doubled my number of stitches, and then I had to knit several rounds of stockinette stitch, and then I had to move the beginning of round, and I just finished my first pattern round from chart 3, and I was very, very relieved that after 540 stitches I ended up exactly where I was supposed to be, which hopefully means that I didn't mess up the pattern anywhere. I'll find that out when I do the second pattern row. And at the moment, the lace pattern is sort of, there is pattern every other round, but in between the lace bits, there's some ribbing happening with the knit through back loop and purl stitch, and I have to knit these stitches in pattern in the in-between rounds. So it's not really a resting round. It's not a round where I can just knit all the stitches. I have to pay attention when to knit and when to purl, and when to knit through back loop. And as I said, 540 stitches. It's going to take a while to finish each round, so I don't know how many rounds I'm going to manage this week, but I'll try to do at least a few so that the skirt does grow and I can finish it at some point. That is that. And that brings me to our knit-alongs. And I continue knitting on my pink banana sock. Not a big difference. Sort of looks the same as last week, just a bit longer. It's still my carry around project where I don't have to think. I can just pick it up, knit a few stitches, knit a few rounds. Doesn't really matter. Another 8-ply sock yarn. Really love this yarn. Yeah, but nothing too much to talk about. But the last project for today is the Haramaki that I planned to knit last week, and I cast it on, and I can't remember if I showed the book last week, so I'll just quickly show it today. So this is the book that you can't buy anymore unless you find a used one, and this is the project that I am knitting. As I said, in the book there's the same colorful yarn, and then this adds the blue and this adds the red. And but my sister and I are using the grey color as the same color, and then have two different colorful ones. I think it's going to be a fairly wide loop, which is okay. I'm not quite sure how easy it'll be to wear as a belly warmer, but I'll have to see. And I'm pretty sure that it's not really easy to wear as a hat. So they have modeled it as a hat here, but I kind of think it looks a bit too loose, and I'm not sure it's going to really stay on the head if you move, but we'll see once it's done. So I chose this opal yarn out of the Africa series, and I'm combining it with the grey Hansa Farm merino sock yarn, and I did the cast on that I learned from Nathan Taylor for double knitting, and you can also use it for knitting 2-color brioche. And in a way this is like double knit brioche. I'm not putting any pattern in, so it's not really it's not obvious that I'm using the double knitting 2-color brioche technique, but I am knitting both colors at the same time, which means that all my stitches have a yarn over on top of them in the other color, and the knitting is just so much faster if you can knit both colors at the same time. Otherwise, if you don't know how to do that, or you don't want to do that because it just breaks your mind or something, you can knit one color and then knit the other color. It'll take a bit longer, but it's a lot easier to do. And this is what it looks like so far. So this is the colorful side, and this is the gray side, and as usual with brioche, the other color always shows through. And I was quite surprised that there's how much gray there is in the colorful yarn. So the red is the main color, and then gray and the turquoise color are the contrast colors. But looking on the ball of yarn, it seemed like not that much gray, but then when I started knitting, it felt like there's quite a lot of gray. And I do notice that so much because whenever there's gray in the colorful yarn, I have both my yarns are gray, and I really have to pay attention to use the right yarn for the right stitch. Yeah, not too much yet, but I'm working on it and enjoying the knit. So that was everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.